Hi, I'm Dr. Lucy Leibowitz. I am a pediatric psychologist in Baltimore, Maryland. I work primarily within a primary care setting, meaning I see patients that are referred by the pediatricians within the practice. I see a lot of families who would probably not otherwise access services, but because we're located within a pediatrician's office, it removes some of the stigma associated with seeing a mental health provider. I see pretty much everything under the sun as far as anxiety, depression, attention problems, behavioral concerns, sleep problems, toileting concerns, pretty much everything, life transitions. Before I kind of jump into some of these really important topics, it's important for me to note I'm a white cisgender provider. And rather than just hearing from me, I'm going to give a lot of resources to check out. So check out the next slide with some accounts that I follow that I can kind of highly recommend. Talking about gender started early here. I think from the moment the doctor told us that our kiddos were boys, we started getting stereotypical boy clothing and toys, and I felt like I had to advocate for more gender neutral items. I'm certainly not perfect with it. We try to be mindful and have toys and books that fit more along a gender spectrum. We're also mindful about how we talk about these subjects when they come up, because they certainly do. In the early years, this might look like not joking. When your child has a friend of the opposite gender, people kind of think it's cute when they're little, saying that, oh, is that your girlfriend or boyfriend? I don't think any of us should presume to know what our children's sexual preferences are at any age unless they tell us. The conversations can evolve as kids get older and they ask different questions. We have open conversations with our older kiddo about gender identity, gender spectrum, what it means to be transgender. We haven't broached sexuality yet, but I would if there was an important, really good rule of thumb that if your kid asks you a question, that they're ready for an answer in developmentally appropriate terms, meaning in language that they can understand. If you're not sure how to answer it, you can let them know, I need to figure out how to answer this, and then do get back to them in a timely manner. There are really opportunities everywhere that are worth addressing and pointing out, like calling it out when you see it. We recently read a book from my childhood, like the 80s, and it was, to me, it felt blatantly sexist. There were very clearly defined gender roles, and so I labeled it as sexist. I talked about what that meant, talked about that there were like designated roles for men and women, and do we really think that's the case? And we just kind of called it out and talked about it and had an open conversation, and I listened to what my kiddo had to say. I think one of the most important things is, with all these topics, don't wait for your kids to bring up these important topics, but also don't make it like a one-time sit-down conversation. One of the first and best things you can do is just diversify the books that you have at home, starting from birth. Get books with gender non-conforming individuals and books specifically about the gender spectrum. If you want to go on Human Rights Campaign, their website, I think it's hrc.org, you can search on there about books. You can search for books on the gender spectrum across ages. You'll get some great resources there. Pay attention with your own kids when it comes up naturally. Again, this will vary by age. My older kiddo, when he was in preschool, loved to have his nails painted. And another kid in his school, we're talking like a 3 or 4 year old, commented, boys don't paint their nails. Now, I was very proud of my kid that he spoke up to the other kid, it sounds like in a respectful and kind way, and just said, no, that's not true. When he told me about it, I praised him for sharing with me. I asked him what he thought about what the other kids said, and he just kind of matter-of-factly said, nope, that's not true. Anybody can do anything. And that certainly led to a good conversation about that. There are people who think that there are certain things that only boys can do or only girls can do. Just because somebody else thinks it does not make it true. We talk about like regularly gender identity, and that it's not our job to decide what gender someone else is. We let them tell us. I think those are the big points. Yeah, we deal with this one ourselves too. Some of it's normal, honestly. Focus on what makes each kid unique, what they get to do, what your older kiddo gets to do as a big sibling that maybe the younger kid cannot do yet. If it's kind of mild jealousy, try to really not give it a ton of attention, but do reinforce, meaning tell them they're doing a great job, specifically with what they're doing when they're engaging in pro-social behavior, things like sharing, being a kind big sibling, Try to schedule special time with each kid, meaning one-on-one child-directed time. Your kiddo gets to pick what you're doing. Make sure that happens at least a couple of times a week. And one-on-one, so that's important, to making sure each kid gets some individualized time. Okay, so when you say curious, that could mean a lot. My advice depends on like what you're actually noticing and on the developmental age of your child. With respect to transgender identity, most of the literature suggests that children are persistent, consistent, but of course that's not always the case. Children, we know, whatever we're dealing with, children have the best outcomes when they're accepted within their families. So the best thing you can do is listen, read, become informed, and also resist the urge to clarify a label before your child has done so, or is ready to do so, or is even kind of broaching that topic with you. I can recommend, so I have 2 book recommendations. One I have with me, one I do not, but I'll let you know. So the first one is Transgender 101 by Teich, and then also The Gender Creative Child. So those might be good reads for you. That's a tough one. So to some extent, I say it's your mother-in-law's problem that she feels that way. You, or probably better yet, your spouse or partner, can present information to your mother-in-law about the gender spectrum, how to best support your daughter, but ultimately you can only do so much to change your mother-in-law's opinion. Ask her to respect your rules in your home, and then you can model for your daughter how to advocate in an assertive and respectful way. Mother-in-law will probably learn over time that if she gets toys your daughter is not interested in, they'll go to waste or given away. Maybe she'll learn it. I don't know. Focus on what you can't control, namely having your daughter know that you support her. I'm sorry, bullying for any issue is horrible. And it's horrible to deal with as a parent. Okay, so there are 2 parts here to address. One is your kiddo's coping, and the other is the school addressing the issue. Schools have bullying incident reports. Sadly, we can't promise that speaking up, filing a report will always lead to change. But I do think it's an important step to take. Depending on your kiddo's age, I would recommend you either walk her through how to do so, or you do it for her, if she's younger. And then from a coping perspective and like a resiliency perspective, listen, be empathic. When she shares what's going on, ask her if she just wants to talk about it or if she wants help solving the problem. There's a difference, right? Sometimes kids just want to talk and they don't actually want you to fix it. Talk with her about spending time with friends who make her feel good, that accept her, and then also work on confidence. So in who she is, in her resilience. Yeah, we've been having a lot of conversations, more so recently, about race. And honestly, that's our privilege, that we have not been having as many conversations as we probably should have from a younger age. We've built up our library in the last few months, more so, and used those books to broaden our conversations. The CNN Sesame Street Town Hall was also great on racism. In our home, we try to go beyond the idea that we love and accept everyone. Yes, that's important. But it's even more important also to see each other's differences and celebrate them. And then also recognize each other's struggles. And we explain what racism is in developmentally appropriate terms. You can use historical examples to explain what systemic racism is to kids. We try to use our privilege in meaningful ways. Kids learn from watching you as parents. Model the ideals that are important to you in your household. Sometimes it's helpful to start with historical events, but kind of go beyond that then. Like our older kiddo came home from school during Black History Month and was talking. Yeah, there are a lot of great resources online about how to talk to kids about COVID. We talk about it as a virus, that the majority of people who get it are okay. But yes, some people get very sick and some people die. We're honest with our kids about that, especially our older one, when he asks those questions. We talk about that we need to protect people who are more at risk, so people who are older, who are already sick, and that it's our job to wash our hands, wear masks, stay socially distant. We talk about that, yes, this will get better eventually, and doctors and scientists are working on treatment and vaccines. We try to listen to their concerns. A lot of this right now for them is just focused on what they miss. There's a lot that they're missing, and just kind of, being understanding and saying, yes, we miss real life as well.